Exposed. The incredible moment a little black girl told a billionaire so he was completely wrong. In a raucous school auditorium, Kayla, a spirited 7-year-old with big dreams and an even bigger heart, sat crammed between her classmates. Their eyes sparkled with hope, but so too did a flicker of apprehension. The buzz was thick. Today was a day unlike any other. CEO John Hargrove, a titan of industry, was here to inspire them. Yet, that excitement quickly morphed into stiffness as he strode onto the stage, the air suddenly oppressive. His polished shoes glimmered as he paced, a commanding aura that seemed to swallow the light around him. As Hargrove spoke, Kayla felt her insides twist. Words once filled with promise morphed into sneers as he dismissed her peers' creative ideas, launching barbs about the worthlessness of innovation from their kind. Seated shoulder to shoulder with her friends, she felt an iron fist squeeze her chest. Her heart raced with indignation, pounding against the cage of her ribs. Did he truly believe that their backgrounds defined their brilliance? Memories of her mother, working late into the night, danced in her mind. She grappled with the conflict raging within her. Should she remain silent, the safety of her ignorance shielding her? Or should she rise against such blatant discrimination? As her classmates shrank under Hargrove's derision, Kayla felt a roar ignite within her, a fire of audacious courage fueled by her mother's struggles. She stood up, her heart pounded. The room hushed. Every gaze turned toward her. She stumbled on her words for a moment, hesitation clutching at her throat. But then determination took hold. "Mr. Hargrove," she articulated, her voice quaking yet defiant. "You're wrong. People like us have the power to create real change." A mixture of shock and disbelief rippled through her audience. Kayla's small frame shook not with fear, but with a certainty that surged through her veins like electricity. Before the gravity of her words could sink in, a sudden wave of self-doubt washed over her. Why had she put herself on the line? What if her voice faltered? Interior chaos ensued as she wrestled with the ramifications of her challenge. Would her classmates resent her for making things uncomfortable? Would Hargrove retaliate in ways she couldn't even fathom? The specter of abandonment loomed over her. These thoughts clawed at her, turning her determination into a tempest of anxiety. Before we continue, I need to tell you about something important that's happening. YouTube has been making changes to the system, and many people are losing notifications from channels they follow. If you're enjoying the content, click the bell and mark all notifications so you don't miss the next videos. And if you can leave a like, it really helps with reach. Seriously, it makes a difference. Oh, tell me in the comments where you're watching from. I'm always curious to know who's on the other side of the screen. Now let's continue. As the commotion settled, Kayla sank back into her seat, breath hitched in her throat. Hargrove's expression darkened, a storm brewing behind his eyes. She could feel him judging her. What had she expected? To step into the world of giants, towering over her without consequence? The internal conflict clawed at her. The responsible choice would be to focus on her dreams, but what about those who couldn't stand up? Could she let her ambition thrive, knowing others were silenced? Each moment dragged as a whirlwind of questions trapped her mind, leaving her feeling painfully suspended. As news of Hargrove's past surfaced scandals that shadowed his name, Kayla felt the weight of her decision twisting painfully in her gut. Confront him? Demand accountability? Or instead, pursue her passion quietly, alongside her mother's sacrifices? Even if it meant ignoring the injustices? The world narrowed to the fevered beat of her heart, caught in a storm of doubts. What path would she take? Would she rise high enough to bridge the gap between hope and despair, or would she collapse beneath expectations as her fears screamed for silence? In that pivotal moment, the choice lay before her, heavy as concrete, yet still so uncertain. The tension in the auditorium morphed into an electric silence, as whispers spread among her classmates. Kayla could feel the weight of their gazes, a mixture of pride and trepidation. But even as adrenaline coursed through her veins, doubt gnawed at her. Did they admire her fortitude, or did they scorn her impulsiveness? She clenched her fists under the desk, grounding herself against the rising tide of uncertainty. Hargrove, now glaring from the stage, recovered from his moment of surprise. His lips curled into a sneer, reminiscent of a predator assessing its prey. "Is that so?" he retorted, drumming his fingers against the podium. His voice dripped with condescension. "Tell me, little girl, what do you know about creating change?" His challenge hung in the air, taunting and expansive. The question reverberated in Kayla's mind, forcing her to confront her own understanding of power and leadership. Deep down, she felt a flicker of inspiration rising again, nudging her to articulate her vision more clearly. Suddenly, she was not just a little girl, but a voice for all those who felt powerless. "My mom works hard every day," she began, the tremor in her voice solidifying into a steady rhythm. "She teaches me that ideas come from everywhere, not just your boardroom. We see things differently. You may ignore our dreams now, but someday," her words trembled with conviction, "someday we'll make them real." With each word, Kayla felt her confidence burgeon, pushing the clouds of self-doubt aside. She envisioned her mother, tirelessly flipping through books late into the night, encouraging her to rise above the noise to make her mark. Wasn't this the moment she had been preparing for? Hargrove's scorn morphed into irritation. "You think your little dream can sway the realities of business? It's naive." His dismissive laugh echoed through the auditorium. Yet with every laugh, Kayla's resolve sharpened. It was as if each guffaw propelled her forward, igniting a flicker of rebellion in her heart. But then reality struck with brutal clarity. There would be repercussions. Would Hargrove retaliate against her? Would he ensure her mother's challenges grew even greater simply for the audacity of a child standing up to him? Fear coiled around her heart like a vice, making her fight to breathe. As she grappled with those thoughts, Kayla scanned the faces in the audience. Some classmates looked fearful. Others wore expressions of disbelief. She knew she couldn't back down. This was bigger than herself. She had opened a door, and the choice now lay in how she would move forward. The bell rang, signaling the end of the assembly. In a flurry of movement, the students began to rise, their excitement mixed with discomfort. Kayla remained seated, pulled into the moment, pondering her next move. What would happen now? She had challenged a powerful man, but had she catalyzed something greater? Her thoughts erupted like fireworks. Ideas formed, a strategy blooming where once there had been chaos. She imagined ways to gather her classmates and sign petitions, a plan hatching like a fledgling bird ready to take flight. Could she nurture the courage she had found today into something impactful? Kayla took a deep breath, feeling the resolve settle within her. But beneath the surface, she sensed that this was only the beginning. The road ahead remained fraught with danger and uncertainty. The task of changing perspectives would be her greatest challenge yet. Would she follow through on her vision? Would she rally her friends with her newfound courage? And what if Hargrove fought back harder than she anticipated? As uncertainty loomed larger than ever, one question pulsated in her mind. What would it truly take to confront the giants of the world? Kayla remained motionless in the auditorium, the din of departing students drowning out her racing thoughts. The world around her faded into a blurred backdrop, every face obscured by the mounting weight of her own resolve. Time seemed elastic, stretching as she considered her next steps, piecing together a strategy that was as daring as it was necessary. As the last ripple of chatter subsided, she stood up. Her legs felt both heavy and invigorated. For the first time, the taste of power tinged her thoughts, spurring her heart to beat faster. She was not merely a vessel of youthful enthusiasm, but rather a sentinel for change. The challenges she anticipated absorbed her attention, sharpening her focus. In the days that followed, she transitioned from impulsive declarations to calculated planning. Each morning became a canvas, where she meticulously painted her strategy. She envisioned a duo of petitions, one fostering awareness among her peers and another that targeted adult stakeholders, written in a manner that showcased both professionalism and passion. Kane, her closest friend, would be an ally. He had an inclination toward persuasive writing, and she could buoy his strengths with her fervor. But even as she laid out this robust plan, a shadow hung over her. What if the repercussions of her bold stances collided with her family? Hargrove wasn't just a man in a suit. He wielded influence, and she was aware of rumors surrounding him that whispered of his capacity for retaliation. Thoughts marched through her mind like soldiers, each one clamoring for attention. The safety of her family versus the urge for justice and progress weighed heavily on her. In her room, surrounded by the sea of posters and project ideas, she'd often catch her reflection staring back at her wild-haired truth. Who am I to take this on? What if I fail? Yet, lingering somewhere deep within was a resolve that drummed louder each day. The fear would not silence her. She needed to defy it. The next week in school unfolded differently from any she'd experienced before. Kayla dedicated herself to rallying support. She approached numerous classmates, her voice steady but her heart exploding with vulnerability. "What do you believe we could change?" she asked them, inviting them to join her in her vision rather than merely presenting her demands. She listened intently, reshaping her approach based on their insights, transforming their fears into a collective strength. Her gathering of peers sparked something unexpected. Soon, a small group assembled around her, each drawn by their individual frustrations with Hargrove's paternalistic approach. Kayla found herself stoking the embers of their resentment into a collective fire of action. Each meeting unfolded like a chess game. They huddled together, tossing around ideas, anticipating moves by Hargrove himself, strategizing on how to counteract his responses before they ever came. But even as this new community began to form, her internal struggle persisted. The modality of making change was proving to be more intricate than the fearless proclamations of the auditorium. Each conversation became a mirror reflecting not only her aspirations but also her burgeoning insecurity. With every new development, she faced a decision: was this movement worth risking everything she cared about? As plans solidified, Kayla felt the tension crackle in her chest. Each petition represented a leap into the uncharted and fraught with consequences. The stakes were climbing. On a rainy Thursday afternoon, the group huddled together in the library, glancing at one another for assurance. Kayla felt the electricity in the air. Fear and excitement entwined like a dance. "We need to invite Hargrove for a discussion," she suggested, her voice firm but silent tremors betraying her. Eyes widened around the room. This was the moment they had been inching toward. Was she ready to confront not just the ideas but the institutional power embodied by Hargrove himself? As their gazes locked, she recognized the harrowing truth. The time had come to face the man who had mocked her aspirations, a moment that would either fracture or forge her newfound purpose. The library held an expectant silence, the soft rustle of pages turning and hushed whispers creating a cocoon around Kayla and her friends. She could feel the weight of the moment pressing down on her shoulders, tightening like a vice. Could she really draw that line in the sand to face Hargrove, a man who had always wielded authority with the kind of confidence that felt impenetrable? Each gaze leveled on her carried a question, a mix of hope and fear, and it settled into her chest like a stone. She took a deep breath, quieting the chorus of doubts that clamored for dominance. Building off an instinct more than anything else, she articulated her thoughts, carefully weaving her words to reflect not only her vision but her fears. "We cannot let him dismiss us like he did last time. This is our chance to represent the voices he overlooks. We need to prepare meticulously." Kane nodded, his belief in her casting a warm glow over her trepidation. His expressive brows lifted in support, infusing Kayla with strength. "You're right. Let us put together a bullet list of crucial points to address. We need facts, testimonials, and concrete examples of how his decisions have affected us," he suggested. As they strategized, Kayla found herself piecing together a narrative far more complex than her initial impulses had led her to believe. It wasn't merely about protests or petitions, it was about presenting a case that demanded acknowledgement. Suddenly the stakes felt enormous. Each word they drafted transformed the meeting into a battleground where strategies clashed and defenses shifted, mirroring her internal struggle with fear and responsibility. The next few days morphed into a flurry of activity. Kayla and her team meticulously organized their argument. They compiled data, shared personal stories, and even rehearsed potential responses to Hargrove's expected pushback. As she scoured her notes late into the night, Kayla would find herself questioning her authority to challenge such a powerful figure. Each time doubt surfaced, she reinforced her resolve, reminding herself of the injustice that spurred her onward. She could not quit. However, the night before the meeting, a new wave of anxiety crashed over her. What if Hargrove dismissed them outright? Or worse, what if he retaliated against her family? The thought gripped her with a chilling fear. Her parents had worked hard to secure a stable life, and her every decision now threatened that fragile foundation. Lying in bed, her heart raced as turmoil rolled within. Her mind swam through countless scenarios, each more daunting than the last. Then, a flicker of clarity emerged from the storm, a realization that perhaps the stakes were irrelevant in the face of necessity. She'd been offered a chance to impact real change. It was a rare opportunity that she simply could not let slip through her fingers. If she backed down, what example would that set for her peers? Wiping away the anxiety, she refocused on the idea of justice, the belief that one person can challenge the status quo. It would be her courage, her voice that was a testament to all those who felt powerless. As dawn broke, Kayla stood in front of the mirror, a reflection of steely determination staring back at her. She wasn't the scared girl filled with self-doubt anymore. She had become an advocate intent on carving a path where none existed. With her team gathered around her, she felt the potent energy coalesce into a singular force: intention. The anticipated meeting with Hargrove loomed ahead like a storm on the horizon. As they headed out, each step resonated with intention, a prelude of conversations yet to unfold. Would they ignite sparks of wisdom in the sterile office of authority, or would they be swallowed by it? One resolute thought anchored Kayla as they approached the imposing office. Whatever the outcome, she would no longer remain an observer. This was her moment of truth, and it surged through her veins as a battle cry. But the moment she stepped into the office, a familiar figure loomed from behind the grand desk, a smirk playing on Hargrove's lips. "You're here to convince me of what exactly?" In an instant, Kayla could either fold under the pressure or rise to shatter the expectations. But the depth of the confrontation was unmistakably daunting, leaving her breathless. How far was she willing to go to protect her future? The air felt electric in the opulent office, thick with tension as Hargrove leaned back, an air of superiority radiating from him. Kayla's heart pounded, each beat echoing her resolve to meet this moment head-on. This was no longer just about her. It was a dawn for every voice that had been silenced. "Mr. Hargrove," she began, forcing her voice to steady even as doubt clawed at her insides. "We're here to shed light on the negative impact of your recent decisions. We have gathered data and testimonials from individuals who are directly affected by your choices. It is imperative that you understand the consequences they have on our lives." Hargrove's smirk faltered only slightly. "And you think this is going to change my mind? You're quite ambitious for someone so young," he drawled, unimpressed. The daggers of his dismissive tone struck deep, and Kayla felt a cold reaction course through her veins. But this only spurred her on. She needed to embody the passion that had animated her during their preparations. Ambitious, yes, but this isn't just about ambition. It's about accountability and the responsibility that comes with power, she asserted, her conviction burning within her like fire. The shocked silence in the room attested to the unusual fierceness radiating from someone often overlooked. The weight of her words hung suspended in the air, forcing a crack in Hargrove's confident facade. "Is that so?" he challenged, crossing his arms, a cunning glint in his eyes. "Many of us feel the impact of your decisions daily. The lack of transparency in your processes and the ramifications on our communities are real." She pressed further, her composure igniting her words. "This isn't just an intellectual exercise for us. It's life and death for some. We are not here to plead for your consideration, we are demanding it." The steel in her voice startled even her, igniting a strength she hadn't fully known existed. Kayla hadn't expected this confrontation to unfold so intensely, but experiencing the raw power of her own words pumped adrenaline through her veins. While Hargrove attempted to regain control, she pressed on. "Do you know that the very reasons you cite for your decisions are being weaponized against your constituents? We have data showing the rise of disenfranchisement and economic disparity since your last policies were enacted," she argued, her voice taking on an authoritative tone she hadn't realized she could muster. Hargrove waved his hand dismissively. "You think you can reduce this complex situation to mere statistics? There's more at play here, girl. It's no longer just about statistics, it's about human lives," she countered sharply. Each response was a calculated maneuver in a game she was determined to lead on her own terms. In that moment, Kayla discovered the power of her voice, one tempered by the gravity of the fight for justice. She realized that the authenticity of her experience interconnected with her strategy. The shaking in her hands was a testament to the courage she had summoned. But just as it seemed Hargrove might relent, he leaned forward, his eyes narrowing. "You seem to think you've got the moral high ground here. But who are you really to challenge me? What makes you feel qualified? Kayla's mind raced. The question cut deep, stirring a rage intermingled with fear. In that instant, a darker truth surfaced. All her fears condensed into a single realization: Hargrove wanted to belittle her contributions, to shake her confidence and maintain his iron grip on authority. But a flicker of defiance ignited within her. Who was she? She was the culmination of her lineage, the voice of the voiceless, and more than that, she was unconditionally worthy of respect. Intently locking eyes with Hargrove, she resolved to not falter. I am someone who has witnessed the impact of your choices. I stand here representing the collective struggle of my peers. And if I am unheard today, I promise you that I will continue to rise and others will rise with me. The tension in the room shifted, the power dynamic subtly yet distinctly altered. Kayla felt lighter, filled with purpose and clarity, aware now that she might be on the brink of something significant, even if today didn't produce immediate results. But underneath the facade of confidence, a nagging unease whispered. What would be the price of defiance? Would Hargrove retaliate? How far would he go to reassert the control he so cherished? The meeting was far from over, and the urgency of the battle lay ahead. Would she navigate the tumultuous waters of authority effectively, or would she sink into despair as many had before her? The stakes were rising, and everything depended on the choices she would make in the ensuing moments. The silence thickened, punctuated only by the ticking clock on Hargrove's wall, each tick mirroring the thunder in Kayla's chest. She sensed that she had struck a chord, but now came the moment of truth. Hargrove might have been just a man, but he embodied an entire system, an intricate web of power that had the potential to crush opposition. She squared her shoulders, refusing to let uncertainty seep into her demeanor. What exactly do you expect to achieve today? Hargrove's arrogance remained palpable, yet underneath his bravado, there was a flicker of something that made Kayla's pulse quicken. Was it unease? She seized the opportunity. This was no longer just about data. It was about conviction, a battle for her dignity and those she represented. I expect you to hear us, she replied, her voice unwavering. You may have the upper hand now, but these positions you cling to are temporary. The narratives surrounding us are shifting, and those you disregard are waking up. Each word was a deliberate choice, meant to echo in Hargrove's mind long after this confrontation concluded. Waking up? He laughed, but the chuckle was hollow. You make it sound like a revolution is brewing. Please enlighten me. What can a handful of protests and noise do against long-standing practices that have sustained my success? Kayla felt the gravity of his skepticism like a heavy weight. Yet, behind the trepidation lay clarity, the awareness that transformation doesn't always scream for attention. Sometimes it simmers quietly before bursting forth. She leaned forward, her voice dropping just a notch as if she were sharing a secret. Change begins with belief. With 1,000 of us whispering that enough is enough, it can morph into a resounding crescendo. Hargrove's expression hardened. He was cornered now, damned if he dismissed her. Damned if he underestimated her. Behind the veneer of supremacy, Kayla sensed the cracks forming. Belief is a nice concept, he retorted, but she could see the flicker of doubt in his eyes now. Yet it pays no bills or wages. Your ideals don't create jobs. Maybe, but the people you disregard are the same ones who keep your empire standing. Discontent amongst the masses can rise to a tempest. Each sentence was a flint striking against the steel of authority. Surgery over brute force. Each careful incision might just lead to something powerful. She began to see that she was revealing strength not just for herself, but for everyone who felt crushed under the weight of indifference. Her passion became not a shield but a weapon. And as she spoke, the realization that this was more than a meeting hit her. It was a revelation, one where she was not just fighting for others, but overcoming her limits as well. But Hargrove was adept. The smirk returned as he sensed the momentum shifting. And what of your personal gains, Kayla? You think this path will lead you where? To some glorious place where you feel vindicated? His words landed like heavy stones, and for a brief moment, doubt prickled at her carefully constructed armor. Did she seek glory? Her roots told a different story, the story of survival, of resilience, of truth. It's not about my personal victories anymore. If I step back, complacency festers while inequity deepens. In that moment, Kayla felt an instinct to explore the hidden potential within herself. She was rapidly discovering that she had a fierce heart, one unwilling to accept defeat without a fight. Yet Hargrove could dig deeper. He realized intimidation worked wonders. "You think this is a game, don't you?" he pressed, his voice now colder. "I think you're underestimating just how powerful our voices can be." She shot back, locking her gaze on his, heat bursting from within. She needed to seed an understanding that transcended this moment. With each confrontation, she was evolving, shedding layers of doubt and fear, and her voice grew into an instrument of impactful truth. Suddenly, she recognized the boiling point was approaching. This meeting, poised to reshape more than just her life, might change the fabric of many others. As Hargrove sized her up, she prepared herself for his retort, the urgency drumming in her veins. The price of this challenge would reveal itself as fervently as her newfound resolve. Would he concede to even a whisper of her conviction, or would he rage against the tide she aimed to set in motion? The air crackled around them, and in that charged atmosphere, Kayla felt ready for the next encounter. This was only the beginning, and the true conflict lingered just ahead, waiting to unravel. She held her breath, acutely aware that every choice would define not just her destiny, but the trajectory of a cause she increasingly felt tethered to. What lay beyond this moment would reveal if Hargrove's brick wall could chip away beneath the molten resolve that now coursed through her. Would she emerge unscathed, or was this a crucial point of no return? The room grew more oppressive in response to the tension that lined Kayla's spine like a tightrope. The weight of Hargrove's gaze pinned her in place, but she felt a surge of defiance push through her uncertainty. Her heart raced, not from fear, but from the realization of her own potential waiting to be unleashed. He leaned back in his chair, steepling his fingers, the quintessential image of a man in control, but she saw beyond that facade. It struck her that power rests not just in authority but in the conviction and will to challenge it. Her voice, once constrained by fear of judgment, now bore the weight of her awakening. "Your perception of strength is flawed, Mr. Hargrove," she continued, determined to navigate this precarious course. "True strength is in the ability to adapt and to listen, not merely to dictate. You cling to a notion of power that is crumbling beneath its own weight." The slightest change in his expression, an eyebrow arched, lips pursed, spoke volumes. She had caught him off guard. The moment bloomed with possibility, urging her to push further, to provoke a dialogue that could reshape their entire connection. "Is it dangerous," she pondered aloud, "to hold on to something that may not serve you any longer? Are you prepared for what happens when the voices of the discontented rise beyond a whisper?" Hargrove's silence, it was deafening. She could read his internal conflict, the wrestling match between retaining control and facing dormant truths. Yet he quickly recovered. "What you suggest is not mere optimism, Kayla. It's reckless idealism." The term stung harder than she expected, yet it clarified her intent. "And yet, if we do nothing, we surrender to complacency, to a future where your legacy remains, but so many continue to suffer in silence." His smirk returned, though it lacked its earlier confidence. "You speak of legacy. Tell me, what would yours be if you fail? What fight will you still carry with you then?" A knot tightened in her stomach. His words were both a challenge and a revelation. For the first time, she realized that failure could not be avoided, but it could inform her journey. "This is not solely about winning, Mr. Hargrove. It is about shaking the status quo, shattering the illusion of inevitability." Each voice raised is a step toward genuine change. There it was again, the flicker of doubt that illuminated the potential for growth within him. Her words weren't high-minded philosophies, they were a call to action. Each sentiment echoed with a truth born of her struggles, and that raw authenticity resonated in the quiet spaces of the conversation. In that moment, Kayla understood something vital. Progress requires risk. A deep-rooted fear threatened to bubble to the surface, yet she grasped it firmly, channeling it into her resolve. "What if," she ventured, her voice steady, "this conversation leads to something greater? A partnership, perhaps, where you leverage your resources for change." Hargrove's expression shifted, the initial shock giving way to contemplation. Could he actually entertain the idea? The possibility crackled between them, an electric thread weaving through their opposing desires. "Your idealism is refreshing, but let us face it, change is risky business," he replied softly, almost contemplatively. "What would you be willing to sacrifice?" His question hung in the air, weighted by its gravity. She could sense the foundations of her identity shaking. Sacrifice. The prospect ricocheted through her psyche. Was she prepared to risk everything for the ideal she was forging? The remnants of doubt clung tightly, but the fire inside her clawed to break free. Everything. I will not step back. This isn't just professional for me, it's personal. To allow others to continue suffering is a fate worse than failure. The walls between them felt thinner now, hostility giving way to a dialogue marked by recognition. Still, the stakes heightened. She realized this was a moment where everything could pivot, whether she would reside within her comfort zone or leap into the unknown. The palpable tension transformed. A hesitant bridge formed, insubstantial but yearning to be solidified. Kayla understood the magnitude of this encounter extended beyond Hargrove's office. But even as clarity washed over her, the precariousness of the path forward loomed. Would he embrace this conversation as a precursor to change, or would he slam shut the door once and for all? As Hargrove's gaze hardened once more, the equilibrium remained precarious. Would his curiosity outweigh the instinct to protect his empire, or was there too great a chasm of distrust? With every breath she committed to the moment, ready to take the next bold step, where the real battle would soon commence. Kayla's grip on her fate tightened as the dialogue ahead threatened to redefine everything she believed about power and influence. And just as she opened her mouth to cast the next spell of conviction, a sudden noise echoed through the office, a door creaking as it swung open, inviting an unforeseen distraction. The world outside pressed forward, unpredictable and dangerous, and with it came a new question. Who else might enter this war of ideals? The interruption was jarring. Kayla turned her head, momentarily breaking the charged connection with Hargrove. The door swung wide, revealing a young woman in a crisp white blouse, her demeanor exuding a blend of urgency and uncertainty. It was a stark visual contrast to the tension that had just filled the space between Kayla and Hargrove. Mr. Hargrove, I'm sorry to interrupt, but we need to discuss the merger, the newcomer stated, her voice wavering slightly, betraying her own apprehension as she met Hargrove's steely gaze. Kayla took this moment as her cue. She stepped back, her presence fading just a fraction, but refusing to give in to the retreat that felt instinctual. While the young woman had come with a mission, Kayla recognized this was still her moment. Forgive me, Kayla began, her tone firm, recognizing the potential influence of this interaction. But isn't this a critical juncture? Isn't it time to talk about what really matters beyond transactions, the human impact of those decisions? The young assistant blinked, caught off guard by the unanticipated challenge. Hargrove's eyes shifted between the two women. A flicker of amusement crossed his face, perhaps because he found Kayla's audacity inspiring. It's about profits, Kayla, he replied, a hint of condescension wrapping around his words. Partnerships need to be built on rational foundations, not idealistic whims. Kayla's pulse quickened. Rational foundations can be built on shared values too, Mr. Hargrove. She could sense the room hanging on her response, the stakes amplifying with every passing second. If the merger simply leads to more of the same neglect of the very people that drive your company's success, then what good is it? Hargrove raised an eyebrow, intrigued more than irritated. He was no longer the immovable object. The opening was small, but it was there. An opportunity for deeper engagement. Your idealism is commendable, he said, but what will lose you when the numbers don't add up? What if I were to fail again? There it was again, the question that sent sharp pangs through her conscience. Instead of backing down, she leaned into it, her voice deeper and more resolute. Failure is how we learn. What matters isn't avoiding failure, but learning from it. If you continue to surround yourself only with those who mirror your beliefs, how will you evolve? The air crackled with tension, electric and alive. She realized that this wasn't just her negotiation. It was a live reflection of her inner battle. In that moment she acknowledged the fear that nipped at her consciousness, the fear of being wrong, of being judged. But perhaps more threatening was the thought of not speaking her truth. The young assistant stood frozen by the door, absorbing this exchange, her face flickering between confusion and admiration. Kayla could sense a shift. Hargrove's initial dominance was waning, unspooled by the raw honesty that Kayla exuded. She could see that his conviction was challenged, a crack beginning to form in the wall he had meticulously built. But then she caught something in his expression, a mixture of interest and apprehension. Did he recognize the risk that came with engaging her perspective? Or was he merely calculating how to reclaim his authority from the brewing tide of change? You assume I am afraid of failure, Hargrove said slowly, his voice measured. But I fear complacency even more. It's a fate worse than failing. So tell me, Kayla, do you really believe we would make the impact you envision? Can you create that ripple effect with me by your side? Her heart raced again, not from fear, but fierce determination. This wasn't merely a chance to persuade a man of influence. It was an opportunity to redefine her own essence of strength. This was the moment where actions would speak louder than words. I believe we can create a tidal wave of change, Mr. Hargrove. But only if I'm allowed to take part, not just as a bystander but as a partner. Despite the uncertainty looming outside the office, this alliance needed to be seized now. If Hargrove was willing to talk, then she could forge ahead. If he wasn't, she would have to prepare herself to walk away. As the air hung thick with potential, Kayla realized what had shifted within her, not merely her intentions toward Hargrove, but her entire understanding of leverage, potential, and partnership. Just as Hargrove opened his mouth to respond, the assistant stepped forward, disrupting the moment, as if she sensed the precipice they were both standing on. I can contact finance to schedule. Wait, Hargrove called sharply, quickening their impetus back to the conversation that had sparked life between them. Kayla steadied herself, knowing that everything hung in the balance. How far was Hargrove willing to go? Would the clamor of the outside world drown their budding connection? Or would this moment catalyze a partnership that might forge an extraordinary path of change? And in that charged silence, the answer teetered just out of reach, waiting for the next words to tip the scale. The silence stretched, a taut line drawn between Kayla and Hargrove, neither willing to break the moment. It was a fragile equilibrium, her heart pounding with both anticipation and trepidation. What if Hargrove chose to disengage? What if they were caught again in the cycle of corporate mediocrity? Kayla, he began, his voice pulling her attention back. I find your approach refreshing. Rarely do I encounter someone willing to challenge my perspective directly. He paused, weighing his thoughts. But how do you propose we move past the numbers? Her breath caught slightly at the acknowledgement, sparking a flicker of hope. We begin by redefining success, she replied, her voice carrying the conviction she hadn't fully owned before. Business isn't merely about profits. It's about people, about creating a culture where every individual feels valued and empowered. That's how you foster loyalty, innovation, things you can't quantify on a spreadsheet. As she spoke, the clarity of her vision solidified within her. This wasn't just a campaign for change. It was about her growth. Each word ignited something inside, fueling her passion for the work she believed was possible, not just for the company but for herself. Hargrove leaned back, his fingers steepling as he considered her words. The austere demeanor he often wore slipped away just slightly, revealing the intellectual curiosity that had always driven him. A cultural shift requires more than just one voice. It demands a movement, a transformation of mindset. I would need to rally others around this. Her confidence swelled in response. Then let us start a conversation, Hargrove. Our team needs to be part of this. Let us create focus groups that amplify diverse voices. We can cultivate a more inclusive decision-making process. This isn't merely a merger. It's a new foundation we can build together. For the first time, Kayla saw a flicker of excitement behind Hargrove's eyes. A subtle shift suggesting he was starting to entertain the notion that limitations were self-imposed. But nestled within the blooms of hope was still the specter of doubt. Was it naivety that simplified the challenge ahead? Just as she began to wonder whether she had ventured too far, the assistant spoke again. We have 15 minutes before the next meeting, she said cautiously. I can book an additional slot to discuss this further. Or should I book the slot? Hargrove interrupted, his gaze still fixed on Kayla. We can expand on this idea. Kayla felt the rush of adrenaline charged with possibility. This was her breakthrough moment, a chance to push her boundaries further than she had imagined. Yet beneath her enthusiasm lay a chilling realization. A part of her still questioned whether Hargrove was genuinely invested in this new direction, or merely appeasing a fleeting whim. As they continued to talk, exploring ideas and potential actions, she felt herself growing, not just as an advocate for change, but as someone who could truly influence the narrative. She took notes feverishly, her mind racing with the various directions their ideas could take. It became clear that she wasn't just shaping a strategy for the merger. She was shaping herself into a leader she had yet to fully embrace. The gravity of her internal shift weighed heavily. She questioned the personal sacrifices that might come as her voice gained prominence. Would she face resistance from peers who were invested in preserving the status quo? Were they even ready for a change of this magnitude? A deep concern knotted in her stomach, but alongside it, an eagerness to forge ahead emerged. Every step she took closer to the edge of transformation demanded courage and resilience, both from her and those around her. As they finally reached the nearing conclusion of their initial dialogue, Hargrove asked pointedly, "Are you prepared for the backlash this might incite?" "It won't be easy, Kayla." "I'm more than prepared," she asserted, steady as steel. "It's time to speak louder and be heard. What you see as idealism I see as necessity." That was it, her moment of truth. She could feel the weight of her words reverberate. The room vibrated with their shared resolve. But her mental wrestling match was far from over. And as they prepared to step into the next meeting, a flicker of fear darted through her. Was this transformative trajectory truly sustainable? Or was it just the first echo of a change that could fizzle into silence? The thought hung heavily as the door opened to a new wave of attendees, and with the crowd's arrival came the weight of expectations both external and internal. Would she find the strength to challenge whatever forces lay ahead? Or would the ambitions they had ignited together sputter out under pressure? As she looked at Hargrove, each moment felt exponentially intensified, teetering between potential and peril, and she was left to wonder if confronting complacency had truly set her on the path to self-discovery, or merely placed a target upon her back. Kayla stepped out of Hargrove's office, her heart pounding with a mixture of triumph and trepidation. The meeting had been a watershed moment, not just in her confrontation with a corporate titan, but in her evolution as a person willing to challenge the status quo. It was remarkable, the shift not just in the atmosphere but in herself. In a mere few hours, she had transformed from a hesitant girl questioning her worth into a young advocate capable of articulating complex ideas. As she gathered her friends in the bustling hallway, a sense of exhilaration washed over her. They exchanged glances that spoke volumes. Their respect was palpable, and their own aspirations were ignited by her courage. Kayla found that she had catalyzed not just her own vision, but had triggered a movement that resonated within her peers, a shared desire to amplify voices that had long been muted. Days turned into weeks, and Kayla pushed forward with the action plans they had forged together. The momentum built seamlessly. Petitions were drafted, meetings were organized, and focus groups began discussing the topics that mattered most to them. Her friends rallied behind her, and soon, the entire school felt the ripples of the changes she had instigated. A week later, when Kayla received an invitation to present her findings at a local education board meeting, she felt her heart swell with pride. It was a bold acknowledgement of her work, a recognition that disarming the giants of industry began with challenging outdated perspectives. In preparation, she invested herself fully. The night before her presentation, armed with data and stories reflecting her community's struggles, Kayla found herself reflecting on her journey. She was no longer the frightened girl seated at the assembly. She had manifested her fears into purpose. She had transformed vulnerability into wisdom, and planted the seeds of her ideals into the lives of others. The day of the meeting, as she stood before the board, nerves twisted in her stomach, but she felt an unwavering sense of resolve. Each person present expected to hear facts and figures, yet she knew her greatest impact would come from sharing the stories of her classmates and families. Kayla spoke with conviction, her voice rising with intensity as she illuminated how Hargrove's policies had fractured rather than fostered community. The members of the board listened, rapt, as Kayla painted a vivid picture not just with words but with passion. She proved that understanding must precede action, that the true foundation of success lay in inclusivity and accountability. Recognition of shared humanity, not profit, was the first step toward positive and lasting change. When she concluded, silence hung for a moment before the room erupted into applause. It wasn't just a validation of her hard work, but an affirmation of every voice she had fought for. In that moment, she felt a profound sense of accomplishment wash over her, lending her an unwavering confidence. Feeling the weight of her accomplishment buoy her spirit, she realized she had achieved more than she had set out to do. Not only had she challenged Hargrove, she had pushed against societal perceptions, inspiring countless others to rise and share their truths alongside hers. Weeks later, as the Education Board adopted new policies emphasizing diversity and inclusion initiatives, an undeniable sensation of fulfillment coursed through her. Hargrove's dismissive arrogance had morphed into a vindication of Kayla's fierce ideals, and she now found herself respected as a capable voice for change not just in her school, but beyond. Each step of her journey had reinforced one profound truth. Growth comes from confrontation, and only by leaning into discomfort can genuine progress emerge. Having solidified her position as a leader, she stepped back to relish the collective strength around her, while ensuring her own dreams flourished. Kayla looked toward the future, her aspirations sparkling like stars against the backdrop of night. With each heartfelt mission she pursued, she felt equipped to conquer incalculable challenges ahead, embodying resilience that would echo throughout her community. In the months to come, there would be further opportunities to challenge inequities and redefine success, each engagement a continuation of her profound growth. And as she considered the power of her journey, she knew the winds of change were just beginning to stir, revealing a horizon filled with infinite possibilities. Now, don't let this journey of transformation end here. You need to subscribe now to witness more exclusive emotional stories that inspire strength and resilience. Leave a like right now to feed the algorithm, and let others discover these powerful narratives. And don't wait even one more second. Comment on how Kayla's journey resonated with you, and share this video instantly with at least 5 friends who need to see this empowering conclusion. Your support is what keeps these stories alive.